It starts like a dream with a deadline. 6 minutes, one melody, and a set of lines that felt less like lyrics and more like a trapdoor. The first time it hit radio, people leaned closer without knowing why. The groove felt inviting, but the words were a little too calm for how dangerous they sounded. Critics argued about meaning. Fans didn't bother. They just kept spinning it, as if a few more plays might finally explain the feeling in their chest. No one realized that the song wasn't simply a hit. It was a warning dressed like a welcome. The band who wrote it were already wrestling with the very thing they'd captured. And the clock, from that moment on, was ticking. But the surface shine never tells the whole story. Quick favor before we go deeper. If stories behind the music are your thing, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and like this video so more people find it. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Sold-out tours, magazine covers, numbers that make a label exec grin. Inside, the gears were grinding. The vibe that used to be sunlit harmonies had shifted into something harder, heavier. The music was changing, and so were the people making it. Country rock wasn't enough anymore. The target moved towards something grander and colder at the center. The more the band succeeded, the more they were expected to live at that altitude. Long days bled into longer nights. The air up there is thin. You make choices. Some are good, some are the kind that keep you awake with the blinds closed. You could feel the tone tilting, less porch light, more after-hours neon, and when a band starts chasing the picture in their heads instead of the one in the rear view, the journey stops being casual. It becomes a hunt. Caffeine took over calendars, hotel carpets started to feel permanent, tiny voice cracks became debates, tiny glances read like verdicts. Nobody wanted to blink first because blinking looked a lot like doubt. Only one question remained. What would spark the ignition? The breakthrough didn't come with a parade. It arrived like a message on a beat-up cassette. A hypnotic progression that felt both smooth and a little dangerous. It carried a sway that didn't belong to any one genre and a tension that wouldn't release. The music said, "Drive," and the melody said, "Don't trust the map." From there, the vision sharpened. They weren't building another sing-along. They wanted a cinematic story in disguise. California wasn't a place anymore. It was a lens, bright at noon, crooked at midnight. The plan was bold. Write a song that felt familiar at the doorway and unsettling down the hall. A metaphor you could dance to. Coffee stains on motel stationery, chord shapes in the margins, and a chorus humming under fluorescent lights. It grew in the in-betweens. Little phrases survived the trash can because they felt true in the dark. If the idea was daring, the execution was brutal. Every chord got questioned. Every line had to pull its own weight. The band wanted it to feel like the desert at night, open and endless, with something moving in the distance that you could hear before you could see. Welcome at the front desk, shadows in the lobby. They weren't just writing a melody, they were designing a maze. And once you walked in, there wasn't a clean way out. The next step meant trading sleep for precision. Studios turned into operating rooms. The work shifted between coasts, the walls listening to arguments about tempo, tone, and where exactly the chill should live in the mix. Perfection here didn't mean flawless. It meant convincing. The drums had to breathe. The guitars had to sound like they were telling secrets to each other. The ending wasn't a solo so much as a conversation. Two voices on 6 strings, rising and weaving until words felt unnecessary. You can hear the discipline in every second of that finale, but you can also hear the madness behind it, the kind of focus that eats hours and spits out a single usable minute. When the playback finally ran start to finish, it didn't feel recorded. It felt discovered. Click tracks breathed like metronome heartbeats. An engineer mouthed along, eyes closed, as if he could steer the take by willpower alone. Faders sat like coordinates. The room barely dared to exhale. So the world hears a song. The band hears a set of choices they can't unmake. And once it escaped the studio, the map went public and immediately blurred. Mystery invites company. The hooks were too good, the phrases too sharp for people not to invent their own tour guides through the lyrics. Suddenly, there was a real hotel somewhere that matched every line. There was a literal place for the welcome, a real hallway for the whispers, a specific doorway for that woman who was both charming and not to be trusted. Some listeners swore the whole thing was a code about habits no one wants on the record. Others decided it was a stairway going down. Debates erupted over one word, one metaphor, one chilling promise near the end that no one could shake. Even a playful nod buried in a line set off a volley of inside jokes for the people paying attention. The song was less a map than a mirror, and people stared into it until they forgot what they were looking for. Message boards lit up years later. Same theories, new usernames. Everyone knows someone who swears they've been there. Proof always just out of frame. That's how myths work. They always owe you one more clue. The band didn't rush to translate it for anybody. Ambiguity was part of the design, open enough to crawl inside, sharp enough to leave a mark. And the less they explained, the more the legend expanded. It was brilliant. It was dangerous. It was both. Then came the reward for all that risk, consequences included. When the numbers hit, they hit like a wave. Awards, headlines, chart positions, every metric climbed, and none of it felt small. That supernatural guitar coda turned into a shorthand for a whole era. People who rolled their eyes at the band now had to respect the craft. People who loved them found a new reason. But victory at this scale comes with invoices. The expectations multiply. The rooms get bigger, the lights hotter, and every night demands a flawless echo of the last one. You don't just play the song, you live under it. Airports became waiting rooms. Interviews, déjà vu. The set list revolved around one gravitational song, pulling every other moment into tidy, exhausting orbit. The crown looked great, until you noticed the weight. That weight presses down slowly, then all at once. And one night in California, the pressure finally talked back. It didn't happen in a studio. It happened under bright lights with the mics on. Tension that had quietly simmered for years boiled into something you could see from the cheap seats. The set kept rolling, the harmonies kept lining up, and in between the pretty chords were promises no one wanted to keep. After this, it's you and me. You could argue it was inevitable. You could say success sharpened old edges until they cut. Either way, the end arrived not with silence, but with noise. Guitars met the floor. Words missed the filter. Management made phone calls. And when the stage went dark, so did the band. A glance turned into a dare. A mutter into a line nobody could unsay. Afterward, the silence felt louder than applause. Contracts spoke where friends once did, and the room finally emptied. What survived was the music. The one thing nobody could break. And that would be enough to restart the story years later, with new complications. Time can be generous. Old wounds close into scars. Songs harden into classics. The track kept spinning on radio, growing into a rite of passage for anyone with a driver's license and a night to fill. Reunion plans felt impossible until they weren't. New tours brought new generations, and the same 6 minutes kept opening the same invisible door. Decades passed. The mystery didn't fade. It aged well. The meaning debates never died. They just moved to new platforms. And the song that once felt like an accusation became a ritual. The moment the whole arena takes a breath at once. Streaming gave it fresh oxygen. Shorts and reels reintroduced the hook to millions overnight. In Vegas, the room breathes with it, tech bowing to melody. And somewhere, a first-time listener feels that same impossible shiver. Even outside the stage lights, the ripple continued. One courtroom chapter unfolded with manuscripts and memories on the line, a mid-trial twist that sent headlines sprinting. The criminal case collapsed. A civil battle rose in its place. The details mattered in legal language, but on the ground it meant something simple. The story of this song still has consequences. Meanwhile, the modern era found the band inside a massive digital canvas in Las Vegas, projecting those chords across a skyline built to make you feel small. Cutting-edge visuals, old-school melodies, the collision was perfect. And every night the same spell, the opening line, the check-in, the realization. You know the rest. Which is why the song still works. It isn't a mystery to be solved. It's a mirror you can't put down. A warning, a confession, a souvenir from the edge of the spotlight. Some tracks are time capsules. This one is a compass with a crooked needle. It points somewhere beautiful, and a little dangerous, you follow anyway. So tell me, what line still gets under your skin? What moment still gives you that chill? Drop it below and hit subscribe if you want more deep dives that make the classics feel brand new. If songs like this never die, we've got a lot more doors to open.